When I was 6 years old, my friend Ray, who was also 6 years old, forced me to play with his erect boner, and I didn't know any better, so I did, and eventually I willingly partook in this activity where he and I would like basically give each other handjobs every time we hung out. Obviously, we wouldn't do it until like one of us came because 6-year-olds don't have any cum or like any sperm in their systems. At some point during this like same time period, this really old crusty man, like this pedophile, gave me head, and that one I definitely did not consent to at all. Like I didn't want that, and I was also really scared, and like I hated that experience. But like my 6-year-old brain at the time also took that as like inspiration to bring to Ray and go, hey, you know, we could do this new thing. This really old man gave me head. Maybe we could give each other head. And eventually me and Ray started to blow each other, and also used like wet bloody band-aids and clothes hangers to play with each other's like wieners. I bring this up because every single time I go viral online, or like one of my sex educational gay videos goes viral, somebody always like posts or comments or just says something like, this is how gay people reproduce. Like every gay person has been molested before. It's just a cycle that keeps going and going and going, and it's because gay people are promiscuous and they just turn straight people gay by like molesting them without their consent. And gay people always become molesters and like child predators, or just predators in general, or like just some variation of that. And like, yeah, I can see some truth to that, and I'll address that later on. But like ultimately I feel like this statement is a little bit toxic and just a little bit rude to a lot of gay people in general. I want to take some time today to open up that discussion and just kind of like talk about it, and like open a whole can of worms and see what you guys think, and so you guys can hear like what I think too, as like a literal victim myself who is also gay and likes to get fucked in the ass. So if you want to join this discussion, feel free to stay tuned, and if you don't, like, you don't have to be here. Before I get started, please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're new here. Please also check out my full bottoming course at the links below, where I do talk more about all things bottoming and gay sex. Last but not least, please check out my premium douche kits, fully discreet and shipped right to your doorstep. Links below. To address the lovely question, do gay people reproduce by molesting each other? I have to first address my personal experience with this question that I've always struggled to answer when I was a kid and growing up, which was, am I, Kevin Leonardo, only gay because I was raped and molested by men as a kid? I struggled to answer this question a lot when I was growing up because of like a few things. One, I already hated myself after those two situations happened to me, after getting raped and molested as a kid. Like my mom conflated the two situations and thought it was my fault, so I basically had to go to a priest and confess and cleanse myself of my sins, and just literally like had to apologize for being pressured into doing something that I didn't know like was fully wrong, and also for getting a blowjob from a literal old male crusty pedophile. And because I had to apologize for those things as a kid, I grew up really fucked up. Like I grew up like, oh my gosh, like I am a dirty person. Like I really hate myself. Like I let that happen to me, and that has to mean that something was wrong with me. So that's one reason why I already hated myself, and I couldn't bring myself to address and really face that question that I had been asking myself and people had been asking me for a while. Two, the people around me, like my friends and my parents and like people in general, were homophobic when I was growing up. So like I thought like, wow, if this was true that like I'm gay and I have these sexual thoughts about guys because that happened to me, well, that would suck, because damn, like if that hadn't happened to me, I would have been straight. And if I experimented and I couldn't get myself to be into girls, then that would mean that I'm only gay because those things happened to me, and that would make me an abomination, as they say. And three, I couldn't answer this question of whether or not I'm gay because I was molested as a kid, because I didn't even know that I was gay when I was growing up. Like I literally was sexually confused for the longest time, because I was like, well, I am sexually attracted to guys, but like, what if that's only because that happened to me as a kid? And because I was confused, I didn't experiment at all until I was like 18. And so this question just kind of like ate me up because I was too scared to experiment in the first place with girls or guys. And I also thought like, wow, like if I'm gay because that happened to me as a kid, then like that would be so bad for me and my future boyfriend, because that would mean that like it's not a genuine love. Like if I got with a boyfriend and he knew that I was only into him because I was raped as a kid, like how would that make him feel, you know? Like that would be so toxic. I decided to experiment with guys and girls when I was 20 years old, and eventually I met somebody who I lost my virginity to, and like somebody that I fell in love with, and he kind of answered all the questions for me. Like he made me realize that I'm normal, and that loving him and liking to get banged by him had nothing to do with what happened to me as a kid. Like it was the realest feeling that I had ever felt in my life, and I genuinely cared about him as a person. But here's the thing though, like here's the catch. Would I have gone to that point in my life? Would I have met that guy that made me realize that I was gay if I hadn't decided to experiment? And would I have even decided to experiment if I hadn't like been confused? And would I have even been confused if I wasn't raped and molested as a kid? I don't think so. I don't know if that makes sense, like what I just said, but basically what I'm trying to say is, would I have gone to that point in my life where I experimented and met somebody that I fell in love with and had my questions answered if I hadn't gone through a rape experience with men as a kid? No, I don't think so. I think things happen for somewhat of a reason. Like I made the conscious decision to experiment because I had been confused because I was raped and molested as a kid. So personally for me, that event caused me to want to experiment, and because I chose to experiment, I found love with a man, and that's why I'm gay. So personally for me, that experience did play a part and like was a factor in me becoming a gay man. Would I have done the same thing if I wasn't raped and molested as a kid? I don't know. There are a lot of people who question their sexuality and who become gay people that have never been through anything that I went through when they were a kid. There are so many people and so many kids and so many adults questioning their sexuality and becoming gay and bi and experimenting that have never been touched or molested or raped. Like that's the truth. But on the other hand, there are also a lot of people like me who have been touched as a kid that ended up experimenting and figuring themselves out later on. It's all a case-by-case situation. Like it's all case by case. Like there's no defining statement that says like this is how it is, this is how gay people become gay. Like it's very much both like nature and nurture in my opinion. I think everyone's experience with being gay is different. I also think it's toxic to say like gay people reproduce by molesting each other, because while that event played a part in like me becoming gay, that takes away from like the real reason why I chose to identify as a gay man in the first place, which was that I found love. Like I fell in love with a man and I enjoyed having sex with a man. Sex that I never thought I could enjoy because I was raped and molested by a man as a kid. You know what I mean? It's also really rude and diminishing to say that every gay man has been molested before, or like all gay men like molest each other and that's how like they reproduce, because like what about all those people that have never gone through anything, or like that have never molested anyone in the first place? Like there's a lot of gay people that have not been molested that also don't molest people, and imagine if they heard statements like that. Like they must feel so shitty. Like they have to feel like, oh, like I'm such a weird person. Like if everyone else came to be this way because they were like touched as a kid, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I like this? And that could easily cause somebody to hate themselves and to question their human being existence. And I feel like that's so rude. Like to say like, oh, you're gay? Like, have you been molested as a kid? Like, do you molest people? Like, that's kind of like too much. That's like really sad to make someone feel that bad about themselves and to get them to question their life existence and their sexuality. Like, it's just who they're attracted to. Like, you don't question straight people that have been molested, like, right? Like, there are so many girls that I know that have been touched by, like, women that are straight, and you don't see them being asked, like, oh, do you hate women because you were molested? Like, there's no questioning if it's, like, straight, because that's, like, the normal thing, you know what I mean? I know lots of girls that have been touched by women and ended up straight. I also know lots of women that have been touched by men as a kid that also ended up straight. I know lots of guys that were touched by girls when they were kids and ended up straight, and I also know lots of guys that were touched by guys that ended up straight. I feel like it's just not very nice or very smart to say like, oh, like, you reproduce by molesting each other. Like, that is not like, it's just like, I feel like if you think a little bit, that statement, you would literally like debunk your own statement if you just like use your fucking brain for a sec. I will say though, it is very important to shine a light on these uncomfortable topics and kind of like talk about it, even if it gets people to stereotype gay people like, oh, gay people like reproduce by like molesting each other. It's still good to talk about these experiences because unfortunately, a lot of kids do get touched by adults and also by each other, and I feel like it can turn dark really fast. Like, we need to watch over our children better and to also just make sure that we're paying attention to the pedophiles and to the kids that are like pressuring other kids to play with their wee-wees. Like, we definitely should pay attention to those people because those are the people that grow up becoming predators, and those are the people that like cause people to experience very violating things in their lives. Like the kids that like take off other kids' pants and play with those wee-wees, or the kids that pressure other kids, the kids that pressured me into playing with their wee-wees when I was a kid. And to also watch over the pedophiles. Like, these are the people that we need to watch out for. Like, if you see a kid behaving kind of weirdly sexually as a child and like they're forcing their friends to do things to them, I feel like that's kind of a sign that they might grow up to become a weirdo and like a molester, you know? So I think we need to watch over those children and to raise them better and teach them to not do those things. Like, me personally, I could have gone down like a worse path when I was like in middle school, high school, knowing that I had that experience happen to me, and then also knowing that like I had self-hatred and trauma growing up. Like, imagine if I became like a child molester when I was a teenager, or like if I pressured my friends to touch my dick, or like if I grew up becoming like, oh my god, like kids are so attractive. Like, that's so disgusting. Like, I can't even imagine like thinking that a kid, like, I'm not even into guys younger than me in general. Like, oh, like, it makes me sick to my stomach. Like, if I had gone down like a worse path, or if I didn't fix myself, like, what if I had that like abomination like mentality of like wanting to touch other people? Like, I became like the opposite of a whore. Like, my experiences like made me like the opposite of a whore because my body count's literally 2. I just banged one guy a lot, and like, good thing I became the opposite of a whore, because like, imagine if I became a whore and I touched guys and stuff. Like, that's so crusty. I cannot imagine making someone else uncomfortable like the way that I felt uncomfortable when I was a kid. And like, when people grope me, like girls and guys grope me all the time, like at clubs and like in public. Like, girls in college used to like grab my nutsack, and then like guys in public would, to this day, sometimes like grab my ass and like squeeze it and stuff. Like, I feel like that's like not okay, you know? My point is, we need to talk about this stuff more and share, because like, when I started being open with my story, so many people around me, like my friends, would be like, hey, like, you know, I never told anyone this, but like, I relate to your story. Like, someone touched me when I was a kid, like a family member, like my grandpa, my uncle, like my friend, like my neighbor, and it like made me feel so bad, and like it made me hate myself. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I felt that same way. Like, let's talk about it. Like, if we talk about it, then we can free ourselves from that like prison and like that jail time of like hating ourselves and like keeping a secret that like we don't want to keep, like something that we never asked for in the first place. Like, you think I asked to like be molested as a kid? Like, you think I asked that old crusty man like as a 6-year-old, like, hey, like give me a blowjob? Like, no, I didn't. Like, none of us asked for this, you know what I mean? These things are very common, like kids playing doctor and playing with each other's like private parts, or kids being molested by older men, like, or older girls. Like, these are very common stories, and unfortunately there are a lot of like rape victims, sexual assault victims, and just like child molestation victims and things like that. These are all real stories, and if we don't shine a light on them, we risk letting predators go by unchecked, and also letting victims like hate themselves, and they could become predators themselves, and like the cycle could keep going on and on and on, and like we could continue traumatizing generations of kids. Yes, we should make sure that the people sharing these stories are like legitimate, and they aren't liars or like exaggerators, and they're not just like me tooing people to like I don't know, like get clout and to like get money in life, like we need to make sure that these stories are legit. Like definitely don't just believe someone if they're just like, oh my god, like that guy like did something to me. Like I don't believe every single victim, like I don't, but like we should offer like empathy, you know, and like we should hear them out. Like definitely don't believe people if it's like, if it feels like it's just like a trend that they're just like, oh my god, like yeah, like he like touched me and made me feel so bad. Like sometimes a lot of guys and girls will say that just to get money and to like fake it, to like be cool and to like, I don't know, like I hate liars. Like liars are so annoying. Like don't believe all victims. Like some victims do be lying, like that's the truth, but definitely we have to shine a light on these issues. We need to share our stories and just like continue to work on ourselves and like love ourselves and watch over our kids better. But ultimately what we need to be doing is not jump to conclusions. Like don't jump into a conclusion of like, oh, like you got molested as a kid, like that's how you became gay. Like that's kind of a conclusion that like some people might not want to hear, or like some people might find to be fully untrue, or like some people might find to be just rude and like disrespectful. So to answer the question, do homosexuals reproduce by molesting each other? I would say no. Like personally for me, yeah, that event made me question myself and made me like encourage me to experiment. And yeah, I ended up like becoming gay partly because of that experimentation, but like would I want to say, oh, that's the only reason why I became gay? No, because the real reason is because I found a man that I fell in love with and I like banged him and I felt really good from it, and I made a whole career out of it by talking about bottoming online and selling bottoming courses and kits at the link below. That's the reason why I'm gay, not because an old crusty dude sucked my dick. Like that's, ugh, like that makes me, like that's so nasty. Like I don't want that to be like, you know what I mean? So let me know in the comments below what your story is, if you can relate, and what you think about this whole question. And when people say that, let me know what you agree with, what you don't agree with, and what you think of my video. Thanks so much for watching this video if you made it all the way through. I know it's probably gonna be kind of a long one. Don't forget to give this video a like, a thumbs up. It really does help out with the channel and with the algorithm. Don't forget to check out the links below for my bottoming course and for my premium douche kits, fully discreet and shipped right to your doorstep. Thank you so much again for watching this. Feel free to leave video recommendations down below. Thanks guys, love ya. And if you are a survivor and a victim, I'm so sorry to hear. Life gets better, continue to work on yourself, and I got you, I've been there, and we got this, okay? Thanks guys, I love you and I'll talk to you soon.